Hey guys, so I think some of you just listened to this Andrew Yang interview with New York Times editorial board, and I've seen comments saying it's super entertaining, and I'm happy about that. And I like the fact that they are less obsessed about impeachment, and they did ask him about his key policies, such as freedom dividend, and Andrew Yang also talked about human-centered capitalism, but I'm less appreciative of the fact that it's actually deeply concerned me is that after such a great interview, they went on to endorse Warren and Amy. Come on. It's just insane. I don't understand. I'm just like someone commented, I don't understand how you can sit through this entire awesome interview. And after listening to Andrew Yang's innovative solutions and his superior vision for the country, and then came away thinking, nah, this guy should just run for the mayor of New York. That's just completely insane, okay? And the only interpretation I can come up with is like a few ants were looking at the eagle flying high in the sky, and they said, look at this guy, hey, he's young and he's moving forward, but he just moves so slowly. Based on the velocimetry reading, his speed is close to zero, and there's no way he could ever win. The wolf and lion are just too old now, and the fox is unreliable, so let's endorse the snake and the rabbit because they run so much faster than the eagle. They are only our only hope to beat the elephant in the room. I hope you get what I'm saying. Okay. All right. And I think the comments actually after the interview, so they have some exchanges, and I think those were even more entertaining. I'm going to play those very soon, and then I'll offer some of my comments. Okay. So this is the editorial board, and that you've seen, and the list of people who are here. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'll start playing this and then I'll comment afterwards.
Welcome back to The Choice from the New York Times opinion section. In this episode, you'll hear what the board had to say after Andrew Yang's visit. If you haven't heard Mr. Yang's interview yet, hit pause on this episode and tune into that one first. Joining me today is Mara Gay to talk about the Yang Gang and young voters.
I'm Mara Gay, and I cover New York for the editorial board.
First, let's take a listen into what we had to say after Mr. Yang left our boardroom.
What do you guys think?
He's certainly in the running for the candidate you might want to spend more time with.
Yeah, I liked his
That's a
energy.
good way to put it.
Yeah, he had amazing energy. He, as you guys, I don't know if you guys saw, he was literally bouncing out the door and down the hall, which was pretty impressive.
He has little to lose. I mean, he's like just having a good time, and you can kind of feel it.
I'm concerned about people who are too entrenched in Washington and don't have enough of a vision, and I'm also concerned about people like Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer, who really just don't seem to have any conception of how Washington works and what sorts of barriers they're going to face and what solutions they would have when they run up against them. And I don't know which is the bigger devil there, but it's a real problem with people like this who have no government experience.
He's a real clear thinker, though.
Mm-hmm. I think he's a clear thinker, too. And also, I thought the earmarks answer was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that showed a great understanding of how it works, quite honestly.
Not of how it works, but of what you're actually going to face when you're in Washington in terms of the cross currents. Yeah.
Polarization, you mean?
Polarization and just the sclerotic nature of Washington.
Also, his portrait of the fundamental economic problems was more moving than Bernie's, and Bernie has been selling this for 30 years. I mean, he really seemed to have an almost emotional sense of what people have been going through and what the problems are.
I definitely got the sense that he, especially compared to Steyer, has more of an understanding of like what the average person is dealing with. Because with Steyer, it felt very much like just throw money at the problem, and he didn't really connect, for me anyway, in terms of, Steyer didn't, in terms of like I feel like Yang really understood it a lot more just on a basic like emotional level, and that's what voters are going to care about most is like the emotional resonance.
I felt as though, like, one of the questions coming into this meeting, in my mind, maybe someone in this room actually said this, is like, shouldn't this person be in charge of like a major government agency on technology? Like,
like a secretary level position. Like
yeah,
secretary
exactly.
of
A cabinet
technology.
level position on technology. I mean, I'm wary of adding any cabinet level positions.
It's just hard to get around the sense that this guy should be running for like New York City Council. And I think he's right that business and government are different, and he should go learn how to be in government if that's his aspiration. I guess I just fundamentally conceive of the role of being an executive in government as something that requires a particular set of skills that a person needs to demonstrate that they have, and that success in business doesn't do it. It's actually life in government that prepares you for that. And I take your point about ideas, but I think there's a difference between where those ideas come from and who's going to be most successful in implementing them. If you think that UBI is an interesting idea, and I tend to have a lot of misgivings about it, demonstrate it, Run for New York mayor, implement it here. If it works, then take it to the country. But why start at the national level?
But Binya's point is a good one, but I would add to it just there's a sense that we all get about somebody's sort of civic and moral seriousness as they approach these questions that really does resonate or not. And I think Barack Obama really, he exuded that seriousness, and I think that was why Americans gave him a break on these questions that obviously he had never had to deal with firsthand, American soldiers' lives, for instance. And I think that's something we ask about all these people. And I found him to be morally serious. I found his 3-part test on when to intervene militarily. I mean, I'm sure people would quibble with the details, but I thought it evinced a sort of seriousness that I want to see from a leader.
So, Mara, what did you think of Andrew Yang's visit?
I was totally taken aback by him. I came in skeptical just because of universal basic income. It's not my favorite idea. I think it's pretty regressive, actually. But I was expecting a tech bro, to be honest. And I met someone who had deeply thought through issues, I think brought a level of compassion and intelligence to the campaign that I just wasn't expecting. And of course, his energy is just awesome.
Yeah, he has such great energy. My favorite moment of the Yang interview was, we're obviously all New Yorkers, and he, as we were walking into the room, he was asking me just like where my kids go to school. And he made it very personal very quickly and found an intimacy that I didn't really feel with a lot of the other candidates.
Yeah, I mean, these are human beings, and it's good to remember that. And it's good to look someone in the eye and be able to size them up that way, too.
I also loved the way he talked about his new notoriety and running into people on the subway.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was great. Kind of just talking about how suddenly people are recognizing him.
And then there's this uncomfortable period in the subway car after you've taken the pictures with him. You're still sitting there, and so then they're like, so, like, where are you going? Or how's Bernie? Or whatever the questions are. And so
he also took a city bike to his endorsement interview, I believe.
No, it was his own bike.
Oh, it was his own bike. It was his own bike.
Yeah, he had some helmet hair when he arrived.
I love it. Even better.
More from our deliberations after a quick break.
To Kill a Mockingbird is unmissable and unforgettable, raves Rolling Stone. 5 stars. The New York Times declared it a critic's pick, calling Aaron Sorkin's new play beautiful, elegiac, satisfying, even exhilarating. A mockingbird for our moment. 60 Minutes says it's the most successful American play in Broadway history, and New York Magazine calls it a real phenomenon. Ed Harris is Atticus Finch in Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, directed by Bartlett Shear. Tickets at telecharge.com.
Welcome back to The Choice. What kind of voter does Yang excite, do you think?
Well, I think young voters are probably the most drawn to his candidacy, but also voters, I think, who maybe don't usually show up to the polls. I think, Andrew Yang, for me, reminds me of the kind of candidate that I hear a lot of voters yearn for. They say, well, why don't interesting people run for office, right? Why can't we get younger people from different walks of life to run? And he is kind of that guy. I mean, I think we were both surprised by him, right?
Yeah, I was definitely. One of the things that really surprised me was just it was very clear how many people he's talked to, by which I mean he's been on the trail. He's been in communities talking to voters and really listening to them. And I wasn't expecting that. He's really done his homework.
Yeah. And you said that, I think in the deliberations, you actually mentioned that you'd seen him on the trail and that the Yang gang was pretty dedicated and enthusiastic.
Oh my God, he's a rock star. They flocked to him. So, he's one of 3 candidates in this huge primary under the age of 50. But many of the frontrunners are boomers over 70. What role do you think age is playing in the field in 2020?
Well, you can't meet Yang and not think about his energy. But at the same time, the fact remains that a lot of young voters are super excited about Bernie Sanders. Right. And the senator is, I believe, the oldest candidate in the race.
Yeah, he'll be 79 when he takes office, if he's elected.
Okay. So I think that just alone goes to show you that demographics don't function necessarily the way that you would think they would in a campaign. I mean, and similarly, Black voters are still extremely drawn to Joe Biden. So I think that, it's not just the age of the candidate, it's the ideas that the person is putting forth.
The board likes to debate the idea of an upper age limit on presidential candidates in addition to the lower one set at 35. What do you think of that idea?
Oof. It's a hard one because I think that we're in a position right now, especially where you really just do want the best candidate to win. But when you look at judges and you think about the time that they're going to be on the bench, sometimes you get a terrible judge who's there for decades and decades. Other times you have someone on the bench who could do a lot of good, but is too old to be there for too long. So it is responsible, I think, to think about the age of the candidates. One thing that I asked one of the candidates was, what's your exercise routine? And I think, they do have a responsibility to explain to the American people how they intend to stick around.
How they're taking care of themselves, right?
How they're taking care of themselves, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
Particularly with the older candidates, it puts an onus on them to find a running mate who could step into the job right away. And I actually think, obviously, that's true of any vice presidential candidate. But, particularly for the ones like Bernie and Joe Biden who have had health issues already throughout their lives, honestly, it makes it even more pressing that they find the right VP.
I agree with that.
I have to say, just as an interview, I found his youth and exuberance to be encouraging, and maybe that's just sort of the order that we've done it in, but it just resonates really differently to hear these sort of political ideas coming from somebody who's frankly just younger.
Yeah. But he does give you the sense that his vision for what's wrong and how to fix it is more modern and up to date than Bernie.
And he gives you the sense that he's actually
more modern
in touch
and
with,
more modest.
Well, that he's also in touch with sort of the anxiety of people under 40.
Yeah, exactly.
Regarding everything.
He gets it better than some of the older candidates.
I think one of the things about Yang, and I don't know that this is actually directly linked to his age, a lot of his solutions are to 21st century challenges. As opposed to a lot of the other candidates, we just kind of see the same prescriptions being recycled from past elections.
Totally. I think Andrew Yang is the least out of touch, it feels, of all of the candidates. Yeah. He kind of knows the cost of milk. He knows what an app is on a phone, and you believe him when he says, when he talks about them and how to use them. I think he understands the world that younger people, millennials, Zoomers are living in. And that's appealing and it's infectious.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because I felt like with his tech answers, big tech answers, that I felt more confident on other things than his way that he would deal with Silicon Valley. Like he's supposed to be the internet guy. And I just feel like there's this like kind of optimism or like sort of maybe misunderstanding of like the power that they have. And maybe that's because he's kind of friendly with them. It doesn't seem like as much of a force, but it just sort of seems like, I mean, if you don't go after big tech and you're the candidate who wins. I mean, I don't understand. They're just going to push you around.
He sells himself as the internet guy, but he doesn't seem to totally understand the power that tech companies hold. And I worry maybe he's too close to it.
I agree. It also gave me pause because the way Andrew Yang talks about technology and big tech, that was kind of the tech bro aspect that I was expecting. And it's not, he doesn't talk about it the way a politician talks about power. And I do think it might show a lack of understanding in a broader sense about what the role of president is, because really you're talking about how to use power for good, hopefully. And, I would like to hear him talk about regulation. I want to hear him talk about companies in general. I think he seems to think about tech more as a social concept than a industry. And it's both. It's not just one.
So, Mara, we invited Michael Bloomberg to come for an endorsement interview. He turned us down. He said he hadn't come up with enough positions yet on various topics to sit down with the editorial board. Obviously, we know him well. The board has endorsed him twice for mayor. You covered Michael Bloomberg. Can you give us a little bit of sense of how the former mayor compares to Andrew Yang?
Well, the fact that he declined our invitation just kind of made me chuckle, because this is a man who changed the rules to run for a third term. So I just kind of laughed to myself and I thought, oh, I'm a billionaire. Change the rules for me. But, they may appear to be vastly different creatures, but actually they're both outsiders. And there's a lot of appeal there. They have big ideas, even if I don't agree with all of their ideas. And there's something deeply refreshing about that. I mean, one of the things that people do love about Michael Bloomberg, even when they can't stand him, is that they just respect that he has ideas that don't come from the political establishment, and that he does what he thinks is right because he can't be bought off. And it's not some lobbying firm that came up with the idea. It's him. And I think Andrew Yang has that quality as well. They may appeal to quite different sets of people or not. We'll see. But I think there's something refreshing about that.
I thought one of the more interesting parts of the Yang interview was when he laid out and recognized the fact that business is different than government, and being good at running a business isn't the same as being good at running a government.
That's something that Bloomberg does not have, which is a self-awareness to understand that, yes, I may have a background in business, but actually this requires a different skill set. And there are other skill sets that are important as well. And I thought that Andrew Yang displayed a humility that was quite disarming, I think. I mean, that was the biggest difference between him and all of the candidates, to be honest. I just thought this guy came in to sell his ideas, to pitch us in this way where he was not entitled at all. And gosh, I mean, that's not something you see.
It was incredibly refreshing.
It was. I mean, and that's ego and politics are kind of twins. Ego and politics are twins. And so they go together. And so when you find somebody like Andrew Yang, it's worth taking a second look.
What do you think of the idea of Andrew Yang running for mayor of New York?
I love it. Come join the party. That's what I say. The more the merrier. We have a open seat coming up in 2021. And I think that Andrew Yang's energy would be a great addition to a race that hasn't quite shaped up yet.
Thanks, Mara.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for Andrew Yang.
Okay, so there were people who were skeptical about Andrew Yang's performances, right? Andrew Yang's answers or his candidacy, right? So there were questions like, oh, why didn't he start from, New York mayor or something like that, or Department of Technology, right? And I mean, why starting from the highest level, the national level? I mean, Andrew Yang addressed this question previously. So he said, first of all, the reason he quit Venture for America is that, I mean, he stopped doing that and started to run for presidency, is because the moment Donald Trump is elected, he realized this is the big problem. We automated away millions of jobs in all the swing states, and that got Donald Trump elected. Okay, so running for Venture for America was great experience, and I mean, it's a nonprofit. It's more like running a government actually than running a business, because running a government is completely different from running a business. But his felt like he was pouring water into a giant tub with big holes in the bottom, right? So the speed at which he created jobs were far less than the speed that jobs were automated away. This is a battle that he couldn't win for in his capacity as the CEO of Venture for America. And if we procrastinate, it's just gonna get worse. And he went to D.C. and talked to the leaders, but what were the answers? First, we cannot talk about it, and second, we need to study it, and third, we have to retrain people for the future of work. But when he looked at the success rate of the retraining program, it was literally from 0 to 15%. So it's a failure, and we cannot expect to train, truckers to become coders, or coal miners to become coders. That's just insane. It's more likely for the trucker to punch you in the face, right? when you want him to learn how to code. So that's why he's running for president, because he wants to solve the problems. He has those innovative solutions, and there's no time for him to climb up the political ladder. Right. By the time he started from mayor and then congressman or senator and president, it's just too late. There's no time, and then you will also see people. I mean, some of the editorial people were enthusiastic about Andrew Yang's ideas. Right. I mean, there were people saying, "Oh, that was a great idea." I mean, his guy was impressive energy, and people also liked his humor. Right, he's probably the one who made people laugh the most. Okay, among all the candidates, I can imagine that definitely, but man, towards the end, I was like, these comments are just, oh my goodness. Let's hear what they say towards the end. I was so mad.
Tomorrow, Elizabeth Warren is up.
And that's ego and politics are kind of twins. Ego and politics are twins, and so they go together. And so when you find somebody like Andrew Yang, it's worth taking a second look.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that ego and politics are twins, but I think Andrew Yang is the one with the least ego. I mean, among all the candidates, Andrew Yang is the only one saying, okay, if I become president, that's great. If it's in another capacity, as a vice president or members of Congress, one member in the administration, that's also great. And he's also saying, if another candidate adopts his platform, adopts his policy, he considers that another form of victory. Okay, he's the one with the least ego. I mean, he's doing whatever he can to help American people. He's doing whatever he can in his capacity to, solve the problems that got Donald Trump elected. He's the only person saying, Donald Trump is the symptom, is not the disease. I mean, we have to cure the disease, not focusing on the symptom. Okay? And so, yeah, let's see.
What do you think of the idea of Andrew Yang running for mayor of New York?
Oh,
I love it. Come join the party. That's what I say. The more the merrier. We have a open seat coming up in 2021. And I think that Andrew Yang's energy would be a great addition to a race that hasn't quite shaped up yet.
Thanks, Mara.
Thanks.
I was like, oh my God. I don't understand why you couldn't see his the most presidential one. You have to see through the form and see the substance, right? I mean, he's not running for mayor of New York City. I don't think that's just the bad use of his talents and bad use of his intellect.
For having me.
That's it for Andrew Yang. Tomorrow, Elizabeth Warren is up. Thanks for.
That's it for Andrew Yang. I think that's it for insulting Andrew Yang. Okay, you guys are not treating him well. You're not understanding how innovative his ideas are. How like how far ahead he is before everyone else in the race, right? He sees through what's going to happen in the next 20 years. But some people are, just so short-sighted that they just can't see the values in Andrew Yang's solutions, and his, charisma, and the way that he's peeling off Trump supporters, the way he's attracting, those independent voters, first-time voters, the enthusiasms. I mean, look at how many YouTube channels there are, that just emerged recently in the last several months, including this one, right? All about Andrew Yang, Yang Gan channels. There's even a Christian Yang Gan channel, right? Yang Gan Christian, that's created by Pastor Stephen Brower from Iowa. I mean, can you imagine that? A Christian pastor came all the way out for Andrew Yang to talk about Andrew Yang's ideas, right? With his real name, and he also got interviewed by Fox News, I think. That's just incredible. And I haven't seen any, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen as many other, channels for other candidates. Like, for Trump, it'd be Trump Troops. I'm just coming up with these names, okay? Bear with me. For Warren, would be Warren Warriors. And for Bernie, would be Bernie Bro. Yeah, that one, you got it. And for Biden would be Biden Bro, or I don't know. Yeah, well, whatever. For Pete would be Pete People, or Pete Paris. No, sorry, Pete. Yeah, Pete People is okay. Whatever. So I just haven't seen many, and yeah. So I think a lot of people will be surprised by the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary. So really look forward to those. And okay, so I think that's it for the comments. I hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to make your comments below and help spread the words. I mean, we need people to know Andrew Yang and his message. That's the most important thing. I mean, it's okay that you don't vote for him. That's, I think it's most important that people actually get to hear what solutions he have, right? And people will start to appreciate the innovativeness of his solutions, right? All these brilliant ideas. I mean, his platform has over 150 policies. I mean, that's the most detailed platform there is, and a lot of them just make sense. I mean, it's okay you disagree with a few of them, but I think the majority of them are they just make sense, and they are for the people, and they are based on data, and they're based on facts. Andrew is the truth teller. Okay, that's why he's attracting so many truth finders. Okay, all right. Thank you for your interest and for your attention.